everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another product review. And on the workbench today we have another optic, and a red dot optic to be specific, and one that is designed for modern sporting rifles. Today we're going to be looking at the Firefield RapidStrike red dot. And this is a company that I have never reviewed any products from before. Now, this is one of those affordable options, and I think they're really trying to compete with the likes of EOTech and Aimpoint, but obviously at a budget-friendly price. Now, I have reviewed many of these red dots, and I'm just curious, is this one special? Does it stand out? Does it have any features or specs that you can't find on any of their competitors? And is it, of course, worth the price? So that's what we're here to find out. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera. Let's open this box, see what's inside, mount it to this rifle, take it to the range, and see how it performs. So here's the box the Firefield RapidStrike red dot comes in. It is the model FF26035. Here on the side you can see all of its features. It has a 3 MOA dot. It has a shake awake feature, unlimited eye relief. It is IP67 waterproof and dustproof rated. It is fog-proof and shock-proof. It has 9 brightness settings, and it has an Aimpoint T2 footprint. I mentioned earlier that I think this company is trying to compete with Aimpoint, but as a budget-friendly alternative. So let's go ahead and open this box and see what we get inside. Obviously, we get the user manual, a cloth. We get the dot itself. Before we take a look at that, let's see what else we get. We get a battery, and we get some tools for installation. All right, so let's open up the dot itself. It looks like it already comes with a mount, which is really nice. And here it is. It looks pretty nice. I like the aesthetics of it. We have the click adjustments on the side. It says 1 MOA. There they are on the top. Our controls are on the top. I do like that. That's not a place you normally see the controls. Normally they're on the side. I like the way the mount looks. A little bit narrow here at the bottom. We do get some lens covers. Let's open these up and look through it. Glass looks pretty clear. I don't see any problems with it. And I'm curious if I need to install the battery or not. But let's see if it turns on. There might already be a battery in here. And right now, I'm not seeing it. So I'll have to install that and, of course, mount this to the rifle. But as it sits right now, it looks pretty darn good. I do like it. It has very simple controls. Looks like the adjustments are large. We will test those to see if they have good detents and clicks on them. But as it sits right here, it looks like a nice, durable, affordable optic. All right, so let me mount it to my rifle, and for this review, I'm going to be using a North Star Arms NS15. So let me install the battery, figure out all of the controls, how this optic works, mount it to the rifle, and then we're going to take it to the range and see how it works. So before I mount this optic to the rifle, there's actually a few things I want to talk about because it's probably easier to show you without it being mounted. There are 2 things about it that I really like and 1 thing I think they need to improve. Let's talk about the things I like first. We have the battery tray on the side of the optic, and we can use the supplied tool to take it out, and there are those 2 screws, and when you remove it, this is the most robust and large battery tray I've ever seen in any one of these red dot optics. And I do like this system over the system where you have to unscrew a cap. I really feel like this is well designed and is going to be durable and not be affected by the recoil of the rifle. I'm also a huge fan of the size of the adjustments for windage and elevation. We can also use the supplied tool to adjust those, and the clicks are tactile and audible. I really like the design of those. Now, the one thing I think they definitely need to improve is the brightness settings. We have 9 brightness settings, and there is the dot, and of course my camera is not going to focus on it, but if I turn it all the way up to the 9th setting, it's still not all that bright. I am a little bit disappointed with it. Here in the garage, it's okay. I wish I could go just a little bit brighter, and at my dimly lit range, it's going to be more than enough. But I think in broad daylight, if you're shooting outside, you're going to want some more settings. Maybe they don't want it to be too bright because they want to save the battery over the lifetime of the optic. I'm not 100% sure. But as it sits right now, that's the only thing about it that I don't like, and I think they need to improve. But the controls are very simple and easy to get to. All right, so now let's mount this optic up and see what it looks like. So this is what the Firefield RapidStrike red dot looks like mounted to my North Star Arms NS15. I think it looks pretty good. And this is just the stock mount, but because it does utilize the Aimpoint T2 footprint, you can change this out to any other mount that you like. And I kind of wish the one that came in the box did have a QD option, something with a lever. Here we just have one screw. I'm not sure how durable that is going to be, but as it sits here on the rifle, it seems to be mounted securely. So there it is on the other side. I don't see really any issues with it. So I guess the first thing we need to do is take this to the range and just make sure we can zero it. Once we do that, we'll shoot the rifle a little bit more, make sure we don't have any flickering. We'll try it at various distances and make sure the mount stays secure. So let's go to the range and let's put our first rounds through this rifle using the Firefield RapidStrike red dot. Now I have to say I was kind of surprised. It was close to zero right outside the box, but normally that's not the case. But when I did want to zero it, it was very easy to do. As I mentioned before, the click adjustments are tactile, they're audible, and that gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to remain secure. And as you saw from the results on the target, I was able to tighten up that group and get it towards the center of the target. All right, so the next test I want to run is simply double the distance of this target, put a bunch more rounds through this gun, and see if there's anything else about this sight that I discover that I like or don't like, and we'll come back here to the garage and talk about it. Now, after putting a few more rounds through this rifle and using this RapidStrike optic, I'm noticing two things I think need to be addressed. One is a very small concern, and that is the field of view. Essentially, when I'm looking through this optic, it might be because of its overall length and the fact that it is unmagnified. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of tunnel vision using it, but it's only a little bit less of a field of view than many of its competitors. But then there is the big issue. I am getting a lot of lens flare, and essentially what that means is when the optic is on and the dot is being reflected by the front lens, you are seeing a lot of the red light exhibiting itself in the peripheral, essentially around the halo of the lens. And it can be a little bit distracting because it floods your eye with more red light that isn't coming from the dot. I'm very aware of it. Now, even when this sight was off and I was just simply looking through it here in the garage, the reflectivity of that front lens is quite impressive. In fact, I can see some of the electronics and even the emitter when the optic isn't even on. So I don't know how to address that. I don't know if that has anything to do with the lens shape, but when you have it on the brighter settings, you will get quite a lot of lens flare. And I think that might be a downside to this optic. All right, so the next test I want to do is shoot this rifle from the bench, try to take as much of the human element out of the equation as possible, and see what this sight looks like at a target at 25 yards. And at 25 yards, that was still a pretty good group. It was a little bit to the right, but I can tell you that was more me than the optic. Of course, I could zero that optic a little bit more at this distance, but the reason I think the group was a little bit to the right is simply because the size of the optic on that orange target. I was trying to center it the best that I could, but the dot is relatively big for precision shooting. I really feel like this type of optic is great for CQB and closer distances. And when you use it that way, I think it would be absolutely perfect. All right, so the next test I want to run is the flicker test. Essentially, I want to do a mag dump with this rifle, put this optic under a little bit more stress, and see if the mount stays secure and if we have any problems with the internal electronics. And as expected, we had no issues with it. The mount stayed secure, there was no flickering, and I was still able to get a pretty good group with this rifle, even though I was shooting it pretty fast. So I have to say, even though I've discovered a few things about it that I think need to be addressed, overall it seems to be a durable optic that appears to be holding zero. Now that's the last thing I want to check. I've put a lot of rounds through this rifle now, so we're going to redo the first test. Essentially bring the target back in at 10 yards. I have not adjusted this sight in any way, and I want to make sure that group is still centered and that it's still tight. And as expected, it's obviously holding zero. I really have no complaints about its performance, especially as a CQB style optic. It really does seem to be a durable option that is well built. It seems to be staying securely mounted to the rifle, so really I'm not having many issues with it at all. So what are my final thoughts with the Firefield RapidStrike Red Dot? Well, as I just mentioned before, it seems to be a well put together and designed optic. It doesn't seem to do anything that other optics that it competes with doesn't do. It just seems to be an affordable budget red dot that would work well on your modern sporting rifle. My biggest complaint is just that it has more lens flare than I am used to. Now that might not be a big concern to you, especially if you like your dots to be set to the lower illumination settings. But as you go higher, you might have some problems with that. And for me, it's a little bit distracting. So I don't know if that is part of the lens or part of the design of the optic overall. I'm sure it can be addressed, and for some of you, it might not be a big issue whatsoever. But for me, it does bother me a little bit. So on my star system, how would I rate the Firefield RapidStrike Red Dot? Well, I'm going to give it 3.75 stars out of 5. Overall, a pretty good review. It definitely works. It comes in at an affordable price. I think it looks good. It remains secure on the rifle, but we just have a little bit of lens flare. I should also say it holds zero and it's very easy to adjust. So this optic has a lot of great things going for it. But in full disclosure, this optic was sent to the channel for review from the company, and they always allow me to give my honest opinions. And as you see, I had a couple of negative things to say about it. So hopefully you don't think I was biased because it was given to the channel. So let me know your thoughts about this red dot. What are the features and specs you like in optics like this? And what other tests do you think I can run to help give you the most information possible? So, as always, thanks for watching.